Rex moved first. His body flashed across the arena floor with a speed that made the watching mercenaries pull in a sharp breath. Mana wrapped around his limbs like invisible fire. His next strike came low, hard, and clean, aimed to break Kim Wujin's balance before the fight had even settled. Wujin barely slipped away in time. Dust scraped under his boots. His arms rose a beat later than they should have. To everyone around them, that tiny delay looked dangerous. It looked human. It looked like proof that a holy knight's apprentice stood on a different level from a wandering mercenary who had made too much noise in town. Rex seemed to believe that too. He pressed forward with the hard pride of a man who had never learned caution from fear. But the truth sat far beneath the surface, where nobody in that arena could see it. The man they called Jin had already spent 12 years dying. He had bled in forests with no roads. He had torn flesh from monsters just to stay alive one more night. He had learned how to read claws, fangs, weight, distance, hunger, and killing intent long before most of these fighters ever held a real blade. Every mistake had once cost him a life. Every life had bought him one more lesson. Now Rex rushed him with polished skill and borrowed certainty, while Wujin looked at mana arts the same way he once looked at wolves, boars, and beasts in the dark. Not as a mystery, not as a miracle, just another thing that could kill him if he failed to understand it fast enough. Rex's fist cut through the air toward his ribs. Wujin turned, took only part of the force, and slid back. The crowd saw him lose ground. What they did not see was his gaze. He was not shaken. He was studying. A few days earlier, nobody here would have guessed that a duel like this could happen. Fewer still would have believed why he wanted it. He had not stepped into this arena for pride. He had not done it to prove himself. He had done it because he wanted knowledge, and knowledge in this world never came cheap. That was how his life had always been. It had started with sleep. On Earth, Kim Wujin lived in a way no one around him could understand. Daytime was ordinary only from a distance. He worked, he moved through crowds, he answered people, he ate when he could. Yet every hour of that life bent under one simple fear. Night would come. His eyes would close. He would be thrown into another world. There, the rules changed at once. Sleep did not bring rest. It brought a land soaked in death, full of monsters and poison, where every night became a struggle to keep breathing. If he died there, he woke back up on Earth. That should have felt like rescue. It never did. His body returned, but the fear stayed with him. So did the exhaustion. He went from one life into the other and back again, never receiving real peace from either side. At the start, he had thought it might stop. He had thought there might be a reason, or a pattern, or some hidden end waiting for him if he endured long enough. Months passed. Years followed. Nothing changed. He kept being dragged back into that brutal realm, and every trip tested him in some new way. People on Earth only saw a man falling apart. He could not explain why sleep itself terrified him. He could not tell anyone that closing his eyes meant blood, mud, hunger, and pursuit. Even if he tried, who would have believed him? His face grew thinner. His temper wore down. His body carried the look of a man who had been living badly for far too long. To others, it was a problem with work, health, stress, or weakness. To him, it was a sentence with no appeal. He learned because he had to. In that monster world, panic had no value. Excuses had no value either. When claws came down, only movement mattered. When a beast tracked him by scent, only distance mattered. When he found something edible, he ate it before the chance vanished. If he failed, he died. If he lived a little longer, he learned a little more. The deaths changed him. At first, he feared pain more than anything. Later, pain became ordinary. He stopped wasting effort on anger. He stopped hoping for fairness. He began looking at every threat with a flat, practical mind. If one way failed, he tried another. If a creature was too strong from the front, he waited for its blind side. If hunger twisted his stomach, he endured it until he found something worse to worry about. Years built on years. No one on Earth saw that growth. They only saw a man with heavy eyes and poor luck. One employer treated him like a fool. Wujin kept working while wages were delayed again and again. Each promise pushed into the future by soft words and empty comfort. In another life, he might have endured that longer. He had once been the kind of man who let others step on him because it felt easier than making trouble. The nightmare stripped that softness away. Being cheated on Earth felt ugly. Being hunted all night by monsters felt clearer. In that second world, betrayal had teeth. Greed killed. Hesitation killed too. He learned the cost of trusting the wrong person. He learned the price of failing to act. By the time his old life finally broke, he had already become someone very different inside. His end on Earth came without warning large enough to prepare for it. He died there. No reset followed. No weak morning light greeted him. No cramped room. No city sounds outside a window. No half-lived human life waiting in pieces for him to pick up again. He opened his eyes in the monster world and understood, with cold certainty, that this time he had not come for a night. This time he was trapped. A lesser man might have collapsed beneath that truth. Wujin did not have room for it. A monster was already near. He moved before panic could rise. 12 years of ruined sleep and brutal practice folded into one clean response. The creature lunged. He cut it down. Its body hit the ground before his mind fully settled into the fact that Earth was gone. He stood over the corpse in silence. Permanent transfer meant permanent danger. It also meant something else. He would never wake up safe again, but he would never be forced back into that powerless half-life either. For the first time in years, there was no split between two selves. There was only one world now, one body, one struggle, one path forward. He took what the monster carried inside. Every beast in that realm held a core. Wujing already knew that from long survival, and he had learned an impossible trick during those lost years. When he ate a core, he gained part of the monster's ability. No one had taught him that. No one had told him it should not work. He only knew that it had kept him alive when other methods failed, so he consumed it. He felt the familiar effect settle into him and continued moving. The wild land around him had not changed. It was still cruel. It still punished mistakes. But now he searched with a different purpose. If humans lived anywhere in this place, he needed to reach them. He needed food, shelter, information, and a way to stop surviving like an animal. The trip was not easy. Safety did not exist between one step and the next. Yet compared to the countless nights before, Wujin's movements had a calm efficiency that almost looked unfair. He read tracks. He avoided the worst routes. He cut down what came too close. The very things that once tormented him had become problems he knew how to solve. That was the gap between him and everyone he would soon meet. To them, Jin would look like a newcomer with strange instincts. To the listener, the truth was already plain. He had entered their world late, but he had been enduring it far longer than most of them. Signs of human life finally appeared. Not a grand city, not walls of power and order, just proof that people existed here and had managed, somehow, to hold back the dark. That alone mattered. Civilization meant rules. Rules meant trade. Trade meant money. Money meant a chance at something beyond raw survival. Before he reached any settlement, he found a lone house. It belonged to Hector. The old hunter lived by himself, away from the comfort of crowds, in a place where only a stubborn man or a grieving one would choose to stay. Wujin found books there, including a record of the world's history called The Demonic Realm Chronicles. He had barely begun to understand their value when Hector returned and mistook him for a thief. The old man had reason to be harsh. A person living alone in a place like this could not afford trust as a habit. Wujin did not respond like a guilty intruder. He also did not act like a man eager to fight over pride. He listened, explained what he could, and watched Hector in the careful way of someone who measured people the same way he measured monsters. Weapons mattered. Distance mattered. The look in a person's eyes mattered most. Hector saw enough to lower the first edge of his suspicion. That did not make him warm at once. It made him cautious in a different direction. He let Wujin stay. A simple meal followed. Warm homemade soup sat before a man who had spent too long eating what he could find in a cursed wilderness. The moment reached him more deeply than any grand speech could have. A bowl held in both hands. Steam lifting into his face. A real roof above him. Those small things struck him harder than battle. Tears came to his eyes. Hector noticed, though he did not make a spectacle of it. That was one of the reasons the bond between them formed so naturally. The old hunter was practical. He understood suffering without dressing it up. He offered food, shelter, and books. He shared what he knew of the world. In return, Wujin worked, listened, and did not treat kindness like something he was owed. The history Hector provided mattered. Human settlements survived behind defenses because the world outside had been corrupted by demonic energy called karma. Monsters filled the land. Their cores were bound up with that pollution. Mercenaries hunted them for coin. The Order Alliance handled bounties and structure. Holy Knights stood above ordinary fighters in status. Mages used mana through spells, circles, and grimoires. Warriors used aura. The strong endured. The weak vanished. Wujin absorbed all of it quickly. He already understood danger. What he needed now was context. Hector's books gave him names for the systems he had been surviving beside all those years. They also gave him a rough map of the human world he had been missing. In return, Hector shared a more personal truth. An alpha werewolf had taken people from him. The old hunter had lived with that wound for a long time. Revenge still pulled at him, though age and circumstance had left him unable to finish it himself. He did not beg Wujin for help. He only revealed the scar beneath his daily routine. Fate did not wait long after that. The werewolf came. Its attack threw aside any quiet that had settled over the house. Hector's old fear became real in an instant. This was not a rumor from his past. It was a killer at the door, backed by a pack and confident in its own strength. For Hector, it was a nightmare returning. For Wujin, it was a problem. The Alpha moved with the authority of a beast that had ruled too long. It expected panic. It expected prey. What it met instead was a man who had killed stronger monsters in darker places with less room to breathe. Wujin struck once. The werewolf split apart. No grand struggle stretched the moment. No drawn-out clash gave the monster a final roar of dignity. Hector had carried years of hatred for this thing, and Wujin erased it in a single clean attack. The violence shocked because of its speed. One heartbeat, an alpha stood there. The next, it did not. The rest of the pack froze. Even beasts understood the shape of real danger. One red wolf, second only to the alpha, felt Wujin's killing intent and chose survival instead of revenge. The other wolves broke and ran. Hector's revenge had been fulfilled so quickly that he could hardly process it. Wujin did not linger on the feet. For him, the kill was simple. For Hector, it was the release of a burden that had lasted years. That difference mattered. The listener already knew what Hector did not. The man staying under his roof was not merely talented. He was the product of a long private hell that had sharpened him into something this world rarely produced. Hector rewarded him with the hide. It was valuable. Valuable enough to change the next stage of Wujin's journey. Before leaving, Wujin took with him more than money. He carried real human warmth from that house. He carried food in his stomach, history in his mind, and the memory of an old hunter who had trusted him when nobody else had reason to. He also left with a clearer goal. He needed civilization, he needed wealth, he needed access to knowledge, especially magic. If power ruled this world, he would gather it piece by piece. The route to Pioneer Village brought him to his next test: human greed. Jacob was a trader there. He should have been a bridge between wilderness and settlement. The kind of man who weighed goods, named prices, and moved value from one hand to another. Instead, he saw the werewolf hide and smelled easy profit. Wujin entered business with him in good faith, at least on the surface. He knew enough to stay alert. Jacob acted smooth. He pretended at fairness. Yet the old life on Earth had already taught Wujin how certain people smiled when they intended to take more than their share. His former boss had done it with wages. Jacob did it with a weapon waiting behind the table. The trader tried to scam him first. When that did not feel safe enough, he tried murder. Jacob's men filled the tavern. Armed criminals closed in around one traveler they assumed would fold under numbers. They made a common mistake. They saw clothing, not history. They saw a man alone and imagined a victim. None of them knew that he had survived 12 years by treating sudden violence as routine. Wujin blocked the exit himself. If there was any last piece of the old forgiving office worker left in him, it did not show here. The gang attacked, he answered with ruthless efficiency. Chairs, walls, blades, bodies, blood on wood, boots sliding on a tavern floor ruined by men who had thought this would be simple. He moved through them one after another. Not wild, not loud, just final. Jacob tried to run when the shape of the fight turned against him. He failed. The betrayal on Earth had ended with bitterness and helplessness. This one ended differently. Wujin did not let dishonesty walk away. Jacob died because he had chosen greed, and because he had aimed it at the wrong man. The scene served as more than a victory. It marked a line inside Wujin. He was no longer the worker who accepted excuses while others used him. In this world, that softness had been burned out of him. Anyone who tried to profit from his patience would find none. The aftermath brought one more surprise. The surviving red wolf from the earlier pack appeared before him, not with fangs bared but in submission. It recognized strength. It recognized death, too. Instead of challenging the man who had slain its alpha, it lowered itself and chose him. Wujin accepted the companion. The bond was strange at first glance. A defeated enemy turned follower, yet it fit the world's logic perfectly. Power drew loyalty. Survival shaped instinct. Over time, that wolf's presence would add one more quiet note beneath the story's violence. Because even in a place built on fear, a kind of devotion could still grow. Wujin reached the Order Alliance and claimed the bounty. Employees there did not take him seriously at first. Why would they? An ordinary-looking man had arrived with an extraordinary claim. Their doubt lasted only until they inspected the werewolf remains. Attitudes changed fast when proof sat on the table. Respect in this world often arrived late, but it arrived all at once. Money entered his hand. That mattered more than applause. Coin could buy tools, meals, travel, and time. Time could become strength. Strength could become freedom. Wujin never lost sight of that chain. He was not hunting praise. He was building a better life from pieces most people overlooked. His next job centered on a monster called Mad Skull. The beast was no small threat. It was a huge boar, tough enough that an organized hunt made sense, dangerous enough that failure carried a cost. That job also brought him into contact with the group that would shape the next stage of his path, the Black Marlins. Jonathan led them. He was a mercenary captain with a practical nature, a light touch when things allowed it, and the rare sense to notice value before the world shouted it in his face. Claire stood with the group as well, a mage whose skills and judgment would soon matter to Wujin far beyond one hunt. Their first meeting did not come wrapped in destiny. It came through work. Even so, the difference between them and men like Jacob showed immediately. Jonathan did not talk down to him. Claire did not dismiss him. They watched. They weighed. They responded to what they saw instead of what they expected to see. In a harsh world, that already made them stand out. Wujin learned more about magic through them. Aura was one path for warriors. Mana was another force entirely. A mage sensed it, stored it, and shaped it through spells. Holy knights used related power in a different way, channeling mana arts through their bodies instead of casting from grimoires and circles. Wujin wanted access to that whole side of the world. Want alone was not enough, but the desire settled into him with growing force. The Mad Skull hunt began with a trap. It failed. Plans often broke the moment a real monster arrived, and this was no exception. The beast's toughness and aggression overturned the mercenaries' expectations. A clean group victory slipped away. In that sudden collapse, Wujin's old life became useful once more. He did not rely on the original setup. He adapted. He stepped into the gap where things were going wrong. The boar was powerful, its body built to absorb damage and keep driving forward. Meeting it head-on would have been foolish. Wujin did what he had always done when brute force was a poor answer. He used knowledge, timing, and precision. While others saw a rampaging target, he saw a pattern to exploit. That fight did not hand him an easy win. Mad Skull was dangerous. One bad move could have crushed him, yet he kept control of the battle's shape, cutting away the monster's options until it finally dropped. The Black Marlins saw the truth more clearly after that. Jonathan gave him open credit for saving lives. Claire saw not just skill, but a strange hunger for understanding. Wujin took the monster's core as well, another secret act beneath ordinary notice. To him it was natural. To anyone else who understood the rules, it should have been madness. Mad Skull's family did not attack after the kill. They retreated peacefully. Even that small turn added to the strange rhythm of Wujin's journey. Death followed him, but not every encounter ended with blind slaughter. Some creatures knew when the balance had shifted beyond challenge. He shared the bounty with the Black Marlins. That choice mattered. Power alone could isolate a man. Fairness built trust. Jonathan respected it. Claire respected it too. What had begun as a hunt started to feel like the beginning of belonging, though Wujin himself never became careless enough to name it too quickly. More than money came out of the job. He gained interest in magic strong enough to pursue seriously. Claire became the one willing to teach him. That was no small gift. Mana was not a simple weapon picked up from the ground. It required sensing what ordinary people missed, storing it properly, learning control before use. Wujin approached training with the same relentless patience that had kept him alive through years of impossible nights. He endured failure. He observed. He tried again. He did not complain when progress came slowly. At last he began to sense mana. That single step opened a door he had wanted from the moment he understood magic existed. Yet the training also revealed something far more unsettling. During one session, Claire brushed against what lay inside him and saw his mental world. It frightened her. Years of survival, death, monster hunting, and core consumption had left marks deeper than scars on skin. Wujin had changed in ways even he did not fully measure. Claire, who knew the rules better than he did, recognized the danger. When she learned how many monster cores he had consumed, her alarm sharpened. Humans were not meant to endure that. Too much corrupted them, killed them, turned them into monsters. Wujin had eaten tens of thousands. He said it almost plainly. Claire's understanding of him shifted at once. This was no ordinary mercenary with good instincts. Something abnormal stood before her, something that should not have survived by any rule she knew. Yet he was still there, still calm, still seeking the next lesson instead of collapsing under the impossible truth of what he had become. He continued anyway. Training did not stop. Travel did not stop either. Work carried the group onward, and Wujin's reputation began to spread. Jonathan praised him freely. Other mercenaries repeated the stories. Strength turned into rumor, rumor into fame, fame into a nickname, Head Crusher. The name reached further than he needed it to. It also created an opportunity. A new escort mission placed the Black Marlins alongside Holy Knight Raymond. Raymond held authority. He was not openly cruel, but distance clung to him. His apprentice Rex wore pride more openly. He looked down on mercenaries, especially ones receiving too much attention. Wujin noticed all of it. By now, he understood enough about this world to know where useful knowledge often sat. Holy Knights knew mana arts. Mana arts interested him. Interest alone would not earn instruction, so he chose a harsher route. He made himself impossible to ignore. He fought. One mercenary after another tested him. He won enough times that the noise around his name grew too loud for Raymond's camp to shrug off. Wujin was not chasing glory. He was pulling a line. On the other end stood a lesson he wanted. It worked. Raymond finally turned his eyes toward him. Rex, proud and irritated, became the obvious next step. The apprentice challenged him from a place of contempt. Wujin did not jump at the chance like a fool hungry for status. He negotiated. A wager took shape. Even here, he refused to be used for someone else's pride unless he could take something in return. That brought them to the arena. To the watching crowd, it looked simple enough. A known apprentice with refined training against a mercenary whose fame had risen too quickly. Most expected a correction. Most expected rank and order to reassert themselves. Those people stood on the edge of a truth they still could not see. Rex activated mana arts. His speed rose. His strength sharpened. The gap between ordinary fighters and trained holy knights showed itself at once. He opened with pressure, drove Wujin back, and seized the early advantage. But even while retreating, Wujin watched every step. He watched the flow of mana through muscle. He watched how Rex carried force into movement. He watched the timing, the shift, the cost, the opening hidden inside confidence. The fight had only begun, and already his mind was working past the surface. To everyone else, this was a duel. To Kim Wujin, it was a lesson paid for in risk. Rex did not slow down after that first clean exchange. He stepped in again with the sharp confidence of someone raised inside formal training, someone who had spent years learning how to move with purpose, while others stumbled through rough fights in forests and muddy roads. Mana arts strengthened each motion. His feet struck the ground with control. His shoulders stayed loose. Power traveled through him in a way that looked practiced rather than wild. Wujin gave ground once more. That only fed the mood of the arena. Men who had been whispering before now leaned forward with open certainty. This was what they had expected. A proud apprentice from the Holy Order should have been stronger. A mercenary who made his name killing monsters should have looked out of place against true discipline. Rex's opening made that belief feel safe. Rex aimed high, then low, then drove a straight attack through the center. Wujin blocked one, twisted away from the next, and failed to answer the third in time. The impact pushed him back across the dirt. Pain flared through his body. His muscles were strong. His reflexes were honed. but mana arts gave Rex an edge that could not be ignored. Raw experience alone did not erase the difference between systems. Wujin felt it clearly. That pain was useful. He had spent too much of his life learning through pain to resent it now. Rex saw the hit land and pressed harder. His pride lived close to the surface. Every success made him more certain that the fight would go the way he wanted. He was not only trying to win, he was trying to teach everyone watching where the true line of rank stood. Mercenaries hunted and bled for money. Holy knights stood above them. That was the order he believed in, and he wanted Wujin to feel it with every strike. Wujin let him believe that for the moment. He shifted his weight and measured the pattern. Mana did not simply make Rex faster in a vague way. It changed the quality of his movement. The apprentice launched with less wasted effort. His body committed cleanly because the force behind it arrived from inside rather than from muscle alone. The timing of his footwork mattered too. There was a beat before each burst, small but real, when his control gathered. Wujin started looking for that beat. A lesser fighter might have panicked under the pressure. Wujin had once spent nights being chased by creatures that killed faster than Rex could move. He had lost lives to beasts that tore through flesh in one lunge. Compared to that, this was structured danger. Human danger, dangerous enough to hurt him badly if he read it wrong, but still easier to study than claws in darkness. Rex lunged again. This time Wujin shifted earlier. The attack still clipped him, but only barely. Dust scattered behind his heel as he slid away. The crowd's noise rose and changed shape. It was still not approval for him, not yet, but the clean finish they had expected was taking longer than it should have. Rex seemed annoyed by that. His next sequence came with more force. He wanted to crush resistance, not just overcome it. One arm cut forward. His knee drove in after it. Mana arts tightened the rhythm, turning separate motions into one flowing attack. Wujin caught enough of it to avoid a direct break, yet the shock still traveled through his bones. He did not answer with reckless violence. He watched. That was how he fought when the enemy carried something he wanted. Long before this day, when sleep still sent him into that cursed land and back again, he had survived by learning from anything that nearly killed him. If a horned beast charged too low, he remembered the height of its skull. If a reptile paused before spitting venom, he remembered the widening in its throat. If a pack circled left before one broke from the right, he remembered the order. Nothing was wasted. Every near death became a note stored somewhere inside him. Now he treated Rex the same way. The apprentice's technique had shape. It had rules. Wujin could not name them all yet, but he could feel them. Mana gathered. Force released. Balance carried forward. Recovery followed. No movement was free. Something in that cycle had to be vulnerable. Rex, however, was not a fool in battle. Arrogant, yes. Blind to Wujin's history, certainly. But he had real training, and real training showed in how quickly he punished hesitation. He cut off angles well. He did not flail for the crowd. He made use of the advantage he had. One heavy strike landed across Wujin's guard and drove him down to one knee. A murmur passed through the arena. That looked bad. It hurt. His forearm throbbed from the impact, and his shoulder complained as he rose. No easy victory waited here. If Wujin wanted knowledge from this fight, he would have to take it while standing under genuine danger. Rex stood over the moment like a man already tasting public approval. He had wanted this. Since the escort mission began, he had disliked how much attention had gathered around Headcrusher. The nickname itself sounded crude to him. The stories sounded worse. Mercenaries admired brutal results. Holy Knights were supposed to embody higher discipline. Seeing one outsider draw interest from his own circle had scraped at his pride from the start. So he tried to bury that irritation inside clean technique. Wujin rose fully. His breathing stayed even. That detail mattered more than the crowd noticed. Someone unprepared for this level of pressure would have shown panic by now. Their guard would stiffen. Their eyes would dart. They would start fighting to survive the next second instead of understanding the whole flow. Wujin still looked composed. Raymond noticed. The Holy Knight had been cautious about Wujin from the beginning. He had not underestimated him in the simple way Rex had. Yet even Raymond could not see the full truth. He saw a capable mercenary. Unusual. Dangerous, perhaps. Worth observing. He did not see the 12 lost years. He did not see the mountain of dead monsters behind one man's calm face. That larger truth remained hidden, and the duel kept feeding that divide between appearance and reality. Rex moved again, and Wujin met him sooner this time. Their limbs collided. The sound snapped through the air. Wujin failed to stop the whole attack, but he changed enough of its line that the damage lessened. More importantly, he felt the structure of it at close range. Mana arts did not only strengthen, they connected. There was intent before release. There was direction inside the force. Rex swung again from a different angle. Wujin slipped under it and almost found a counter. Almost, but the apprentice recovered too quickly. Mana pulled Rex out of danger faster than ordinary footwork should have allowed. Wujin stepped back instead of gambling on a poor opening. The choice looked passive. In truth, it kept him from taking a bad trade for no reason. He had spent too long surviving to confuse bravery with stupidity. A few mercenaries shouted from the side. Some supported Rex. Others were starting to watch Wujin with a more serious expression. There was a point in every uneven fight when spectators sensed something was off. It came when the weaker side failed to collapse on schedule. Wujin had reached that point. He still looked pressured. He still appeared behind. Yet the expected finish refused to arrive. Rex heard the crowd and mistook the change for simple stubbornness. He increased the output of his mana arts. Power surged more sharply through his movements. The shift was visible even to those without deep knowledge. His speed climbed. The next rush came like a blade loosed from its sheath. Wujin crossed his guard, braced, and still got driven several steps back. Now the cost was real. His arms felt heavy. His body carried fresh bruising. A small error from here could become a crippling blow. He had chosen this duel for a reason, but reasons did not reduce impact. They only gave it value. The lesson sharpened. Mana arts were not some vague blessing granted to the worthy. They were a practical method. A body trained to hold mana could push past normal limits in short, decisive bursts. The user became faster, stronger, more dangerous in direct contact. Against monsters, that kind of edge would be devastating. Against a human already skilled in close combat, it made every exchange far more costly. Wujin wanted that power, not for status, not to stand in white armor under banners. He wanted it because any tool that increased survival was worth learning. He changed his focus. Instead of reading only the strike, he watched the preparation. The ankle, the hip, the tightening around the torso. The fraction of a moment before mana traveled into motion. Rex hit it well, but not perfectly. No fighter hid everything. Every style paid a price somewhere. Wujin believed that with the absolute conviction of someone who had made a life from finding weak points. Rex attacked once more. Wujin moved at the same instant. The audience could not have named the difference, but it was there. He was still not faster than Rex. He still could not match the mana arts head-on. Yet he was no longer reacting late. He was starting to move with the attack instead of after it. The blow skimmed past where his body had been. Dust kicked up behind him. Rex's expression shifted. Only slightly. Still, it shifted. That tiny change had value. Pride rarely enjoyed resistance. An opponent who adapted under pressure was more dangerous than one who simply endured damage. Rex pressed in to recover momentum, and Wujin gave him another answer. Not a clean counterstrike, but a defensive movement that forced the apprentice to adjust. That was enough. Once the pattern started to crack, Wujin followed it. Anyone watching closely could have seen what was happening. He was learning during the fight, not in some theatrical way, not with impossible leaps or sudden mastery. He was doing what he had always done. He was turning danger into information, information into habit, habit into survival. The memory of Claire's lessons brushed through him in that moment. Sense mana, store mana, use it. Simple words on the surface, hard work underneath. She had guided him through the first steps with patience he had not expected to receive from anyone. When he struggled, she corrected him. When he pushed himself too far, she noticed. When his strange nature showed through the cracks, she still continued teaching, even after fear touched her face. That kindness had weight. Hector had fed him and trusted him. Jonathan had recognized his value. Claire had opened the door to a kind of power he had wanted from the start. None of them fully understood what he was, yet all three had offered something real. In a world where greed like Jacob's could end a life in minutes, those bonds mattered more than sentiment. They gave him direction. They gave him reasons to keep moving toward people, instead of only away from death. Rex knew nothing of that. He only saw a mercenary refusing to fall properly. His next assault came with open irritation. The clean lines of earlier technique remained, but the desire to dominate now sat closer to the surface. Wujin recognized that too. Human emotion changed fights just as surely as terrain did. Anger shortened patience. Pride narrowed vision. Impatience widened risks. Still, even flawed, Rex was strong. He forced Wujin to defend high, then cut down at a new angle with startling speed. Wujin caught part of it, but the impact spun him offline. Pain spread through his side. Air left his lungs in a tight burst. A few more of those would end the fight whether he understood mana arts or not. He steadied himself and kept watching. The arena floor had begun to carry marks from their movement. Dragged lines, scuffed dirt, footprints layered atop one another. Those small traces made the fight feel more real than the crowd's noise. Wujin had learned long ago to read the ground as much as the enemy. The body lied less when forced to leave marks behind. Rex launched again from familiar footing. There, the gathering before motion, the release through the legs, the commitment. Wujin shifted at once, letting the attack pass closer than was comfortable, closer than was safe for anyone without his background. He felt the rush of force beside him and saw the apprentice's opening for a blink. Not enough yet to win, enough to understand. He nearly smiled, not because he was enjoying the damage, not because he had turned the fight around. He had not. Rex still controlled the visible pace, but Wujin could finally see shape where before he had only seen speed. This was the way his life always worked. Others looked at a wall and stopped. He looked for a seam. The same habit had kept him alive in Hector's woods. It had guided him through the tavern massacre when Jacob's men closed in. It had let him survive the Mad Skull hunt when the trap failed and panic spread. It had carried him through mana training when progress came slowly and every new concept felt hidden behind a locked door. His strength never came from comfort. It came from endurance married to observation. Rex stepped back half a pace, surprised to find his target still reading him. That small pause changed the emotional balance of the scene even if nobody announced it. Until then, Rex had been the one imposing certainty. Now the certainty held a crack. He was still ahead. He was still stronger in direct output, yet he had started to realize that this mercenary was not fighting like anyone he knew. Raymond's attention sharpened further. The Holy Knight had enough experience to recognize unusual composure. Fighters under real pressure usually revealed their foundation. Wujin's foundation looked strange. He did not move like a formally trained knight. He did not move like a common brawler either. There was too much patience in him, too much economy, too little waste in how he responded to danger. Wujin had wanted Raymond's notice from the start. He was getting it. The cost was written across his body. Bruising deepened. His breathing carried more weight now, though he kept it under control. Sweat gathered at his neck and temple. If this had been a fight to the death, the consequences of misreading one exchange would have been immediate. He never forgot that. Even inside a duel with rules, he treated every mistake as if it might be fatal. That habit was carved too deep to lose. Rex entered again with another burst of mana. Wujin took the exchange, defended, retreated, studied. That became the shape of the opening phase. Not repetition in the lazy sense, but escalation. Each clash tested whether Wujin could keep learning before Rex's superior speed broke him. Each retreat forced him to pay for knowledge with pain. Each successful read bought him only a little more time. The crowd felt that pressure, even if they could not explain it. A mercenary captain might have muttered that Headcrusher was stubborn. A mage like Claire would have seen more. She knew what it meant for someone new to mana to stand this long against trained arts, even if he lacked refined control himself. She also knew the danger under his calm surface. Watching him seek growth this way must have been unsettling. Wujin did not learn like ordinary people. He endured the impossible until it became technique. That was what Monster Core Survival had done to him. It had twisted his path, yes. It had made him abnormal. But it had also trained him to treat the impossible as a problem with an answer hidden somewhere inside it. Rex snapped forward with a fresh strike and caught him cleanly enough to stagger him once more. The apprentice looked ready to end it. Wujin, however, was no longer looking at the attack with confusion. He was looking at it with focus. By then he had gathered what he came for, or at least the first precious pieces of it. Mana arts were no longer a blur beyond human reach. They had started to become legible, not mastered, not copied, simply seen. And that was where the visible story stopped. The outcome had not been shown. The duel had not yet reached its conclusion. Rex still held the early advantage. Wujin still looked like the man being driven back. Yet beneath that surface, the real question had shifted. It was no longer whether he had the courage to stand there. That answer was already plain. The question was what a man like Kim Wujin would do once he understood the thing placed in front of him, because every part of his journey had pointed toward the same unsettling truth. Each person who underestimated him paid for it. Each enemy who mistook calm for weakness learned too late. Each new system he touched became another field where his monstrous patience could work. He had entered this world wanting one quiet night of sleep. Instead, he found a cursed land, a few rare allies, a body changed by monster cores, and a path that kept opening wider each time he survived what should have killed him. Hector had given him shelter when he was alone. Jacob had shown what happened to people who reached for him with greed. The Black Marlins had offered trust through shared danger. Claire had pulled back one layer of the mystery inside him and found something that should not exist. Raymond had begun to watch. Rex had stepped forward in pride. None of them knew the full shape of the man before them. Only the listener could see the whole road behind him. 12 years of hidden struggle, countless deaths, endless nights, skills built in secret. A survivor who looked like an ordinary mercenary until the world forced him to reveal another piece of himself. And now he stood at the edge of a new kind of power, already bleeding for the chance to learn it. That was enough to carry the story forward. Not because victory had been handed to him. It had not. Not because this world suddenly became kind. It remained cruel. But because every turn so far had proven the same hard promise. Whenever this world put Kim Wujin in front of something impossible, he did not step away from it. He studied it. He endured it. Then, sooner or later, he made it his own.